Good morning. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Today is Tuesday, November 9th, and we're here today to present to the residents of Westchester County, and specifically the members of the Westchester County Board of Legislators, our administration's proposed budget for the year 2022. We're here to review the outline of a document that will have great detail attached to it. The document will be online a little bit later today on westchestergov.com. It will be presented to the Board of Legislators today for their review, and in a little while, when I officially hand it over to Chairman Ben Boykin, he will outline the board's strategies in reviewing it, the steps that they will be taking. We expect that sometime by the middle of December, the board will complete its work. The administration and the legislature will negotiate any differences that we have, and then hopefully we'll come to a document that is signed by myself as executive, and then it will be in place on December 31st to begin the new fiscal year, which begins with the new calendar year on January 1st, 2022. This budget, as every budget is the single most important public policy action that a government takes. It's the most important action when it happens in Albany, when it happens in Washington, when it happens at your town hall, your city hall, or village hall, and it's the most singular important action here in Westchester County. That is because every single thing that we believe in, every single public policy, every single task that we intend to undertake has to be budgeted. There has to be resources, manpower allocation, financial allocation to do that, and that would be found in this budget. You can give speeches, you can pass legislation, we can author executive orders, but none of those things can happen, can be implemented to become real world unless we've adopted a budget through the legal process that has been set aside for us. And that is exactly what we begin that process now in its final phases. Before I go through the review of this document, let me thank the key members of the executive branch that have really made this possible. Ken Jenkins, our Deputy County Executive. Joan McDonnell, our Director of Operations. Emily Saltzman, our Deputy Director of Operations. Larry Sewell, our Budget Director. Gideon Grande, our Deputy Budget Director. All of these individuals and so many more have been intrinsically involved in putting together the variety of different policies that are all embedded in the various elements of this budget. I should point out what we're presenting today is the operating budget for the county government, and then in addition to that, two separate sets of budgets that involve special districts. The refuse district, which is about 2/3 of the county, close to 3/4 of the county that are part of the refuse district, and then a series of sewer districts that involve different combinations of communities that use the various sewer treatment plants as a means of releasing effluent. Those budgets are presented today. They join the capital budget, which was announced a month ago, which is in the possession of the Board of Legislators. They're in the process of reviewing it. All those budgets together will be acted on, as I said, by mid-December, and all of those issues fit together to become the overall county budget, as we commonly refer to it. We're going to look at this year's budget in a little bit different fashion than I've done in past years. Rather than talking about the financial impacts and going through a long tabular list of things, I want to look at this budget in terms of what is its impact to you as an individual. Because at the end of the day, the individual wants to know, what does it mean to me? How does it affect my life? What does this cost me, and how does this benefit me? So let's talk about that in a couple of different ways. The single most important way that people interact with this budget is they want to know the financial impact of this. How does this budget affect my wallet? And sometimes almost exclusive of all of the other elements of the budget. So let me start off with what we've already talked about previously. The county property tax levy in this budget is reduced by $7 million. That is a deeper reduction than a year ago and the prior year. In consecutive years, we reduced the county property tax levy by $1 million in 2 consecutive years. This year, it is a reduction of $7 million. This reduction is the second deepest cut in county property taxes in the last 20 years. The second deepest cut in the last 20 years. And it's the first time that we've done 3 consecutive cuts in county property tax levy in 20 years. And there was much made of the fact that over a number of years in a row, there was a tax freeze in Westchester County. We're cutting, not freezing, we're cutting property taxes with this budget for the 3rd consecutive year. Now, what that means to you as an individual depends on where you live. The formula is complicated. I wish I could unravel it for you, but it represents a combination of three factors, two of which we in county government do not control. The county executive and the county legislature do not control the state equalization rate, which tries to rationalize land of similar size between, say, Bronxville next door to Mount Vernon, and adjusts how those two municipalities value property. And then also the assessment roll of each property, which is compiled by local assessors in each of the different municipalities. And the assessment rolls differ from community to community. You can imagine the differences between Yonkers and Pound Ridge, two separate, distinct municipalities that each get a share of the county property tax levy. But given those two things, let me give you an idea of what the last two budgets look like. In 2020, we cut $1 million from the county property tax levy. What that meant after those calculations was a 4% decrease in the county property tax bill for the residents of North White Plains. People who live in the town of North Castle, their property taxes in 2020 went down by 4% because of what we did by cutting $1 million in county tax levy in 2020. In the village of Tuckahoe, it went down 2% in 2020. It also went down 2% in the hamlets of Hawthorne and Thornwood, in the village of Sleepy Hollow, and in a host of other communities. That $1 million tax cut of 2020 had that effect. In 2021, we had an additional $1 million cut in property tax levy. That generated an 8% decrease in the city of White Plains homeowners' property tax bill, an 8% decrease. It was a 3% decrease in the town village of Harrison. It was a 2% decrease in the village of Mount Kisco, and it was a 3% decrease all across Eastchester, which includes Tuckahoe and Bronxville as well. These are representative examples. I could give you other examples. There were some communities that had deeper tax cuts. Pound Ridge had a 5% decrease out of this. So we can't control exactly what the impact is for your particular community. And keep in mind that when you pay your taxes, if you pay $20,000 a year in property taxes, if you pay less, divide that number. If you pay more, multiply that number. A $20,000 overall tax obligation, property tax obligation, you pay about 13 of that, 13,000 out of a 20,000 bill to your school district, wherever you may live. The remaining 6,000 to 7,000 is divided between the city, town, village you may live in, municipal taxes, and a slightly equal amount to the county taxes. So we're talking in the vicinity of 15 to 20% of your total tax bill is the county tax obligation. We obviously do not control the schools. We try to assist the schools by sharing some of our revenue back with them. We assist the towns and villages in the small cities by sharing some of our resources back with them. But at the end of the day, what we control here is the county property tax bill, and that will have an impact this year as we cut $7 million out of that amount. The overall budget is $2.2 billion. There's an increase in spending that is directly correlated to the American Rescue Plan Act money, ARPA, the money that was approved earlier this year in Washington, D.C. Westchester County will receive $94 million in revenue that is found in this budget. That's additional revenue, and correlating spending to that revenue of $94 million increases the overall spending by that much, slightly more than that. But when someone says you're spending more this year than last year, we're spending more because we have a specific allocation of money from ARPA that we will be spending on the programs that have been identified by the federal government, which enhances the services we provide Westchester County. But the baseline of our spending is only marginally more than it was a year ago for a number of different reasons. Our operating surplus in this budget is $64 million, and we have a significant reserve fund set aside in this budget. That reserve fund is the same thing as your savings account in your personal finances. You want to save money. You may save money for your retirement. You may save money for your children going to college if you're of a certain age. You save money because you don't know if the boiler in your basement is going to misfunction. You don't know if your car is going to break down. You put money in your savings account for that rainy day. That is exactly what this budget does at a very significant level. When we came into office, both this board majority and myself on January 1st, 2018, that margin was as low as could be imagined, and it caused us to lose our AAA bond rating. The fiscal year ending 2017, when assessed by the Wall Street agencies, Standard & Poor's, Fitch, Moody's. They downgraded our bonds from AAA down to AA plus or AA1, and they put us on a negative outlook in Westchester County. We have now lifted that negative outlook, so we have an upgrade in the way our bonds are being looked at. We are now in a stable condition, and we're heading in the direction toward restoration of our AAA bond rating by making sure that we have a significant fund balance in this balance. I've heard people say, oh, they're hoarding money. No, we're saving for a rainy day. And you know in your family, as we know in our county budget, that's the smart thing to do. That's the wise thing to do, to have money available for the emergencies that we couldn't count on. Who counted on COVID coming? No one did. But we were prepared for it, and we're being prepared in this budget going forward. And what does that mean to you if we have a good bond rating? It means when we go out to borrow money to do the necessary improvements that are in our capital plan, when we fix a road, we repave a road on the street, near the street where you live, and you say, oh, the county's fixing something, that's an improvement, that we can borrow that money for less interest rates, in the same way that you try to have your personal credit rating as high as possible, so that when you go for a home improvement loan, you pay a lesser amount of interest. It benefits you personally and directly. So when we have that reserve fund at a workable level, when we get that improved bond rating, it benefits you, the taxpayer, in the same way that it benefits you that we cut county property taxes. How does this budget affect jobs, economic growth? What does that mean to you? Depends on where you are in your career. But this budget puts aside $25 million in it for a host of economic programs that will help those that need that help in order to fully be active in the job market and to be gainfully employed. That money will go in part for workforce training, for support for small businesses and their assistance. And some of that assistance comes through the support we give to local chambers of commerce, which we have done in the last 2 years, and it's the first time ever that the county government has been involved directly in helping small businesses on the main streets of the villages and towns and hamlets of this county. We have money set aside to assist not-for-profit organizations in their operations, and that's important because they employ 20% of the people who are gainfully employed in Westchester County. So that is economic development money, as well for our religious institutions. There is money in economic growth for tourism and hospitality. That industry has suffered a terrible downturn because of COVID. It's on the way back up, and when we promote those types of activities, we improve the general economic health of the county. That generates sales tax revenue. It can generate hotel occupancy tax revenue. The more non-property tax revenue we generate, the less we have to turn to property taxes to balance our budget. This also helps us with our entrepreneurship programs. This is an innovation that has come during the context of our administration. We have had, and Bridget Gibbons, our Director of Economic Development, Deb Novick, who works with her, creative programs that never existed in the county before to try to help businesses in their early stages to start out. Because that's how Regeneron started out. It started out with brilliant men and an idea and the beginning of something that incubated and grew to a tremendously successful company. Now, not every company is going to turn into Regeneron, but a company with 2 people and an idea can become a company with 5 people, with 25 people. And that may be where the job comes, if not for you, then for your children. And that represents wise, intelligent investment in our economic development growth. We also have, in a separate budget, not part of the county budget, but part of the overall budget that we manage, an industrial development agency. And that industrial development agency incentivizes different development. It has its own budget. It generates revenue. And with that revenue, we're able to incentivize major companies like Regeneron, like Morgan Stanley, when they expand their workforce. Both of those 2 companies have been incented by IDA money through county government sources that have helped grow high-paying jobs in this county. Hundreds of new jobs coming to Westchester, some in Tarrytown, some over in Harrison, that represent part of the philosophy of this government for jobs and for economic growth. That's how this budget helps you in that area. This budget also takes into account public safety. There are many things that we care about, and certainly in our comings and goings, we worry about our safety. We worry about our safety from crime. We worry about our safety from other factors that could impact that. Crime in Westchester County has gone down over the last 4 years. Indexed crime, crimes against personal property, violent crimes against individuals. It is down over these 4 years. We have made a full investment, $52.8 million in our public safety department. We certainly are not defunding anything, but we're funding it properly to get the proper actions. What does it matter to you? It matters to you if you live in Mount Kisco, or you live in the town of Cortland, where the county police department does the local policing for you, that you know that those police will be available They'll be on duty. They'll be doing all of the things that local policing does to take care, to make sure that there's public safety and that you can feel safe as you come and you go in those communities. We also protect you. Our county police protect you when you're in any of our parks. And that can be a concern when you're out there by yourself, taking a walk through the nature woods, that you know that there's a police presence that's there to protect you. That's funded in this budget properly. And that helps us make sure that for all of our different people, when they travel on our parkways, that they're properly protected. Because let me tell you that as our county police and our Department of Emergency Services that are there to help stranded motorists. We had a recent flood in September. We've had other incidents in the past. And when drivers are stranded on a roadway, they fear for their safety, they fear for their property, and they fear for their public safety. It is our county police, properly funded, properly directed, and our Department of Environmental Emergency Services people that are out there to help them in that difficult moment. That's how this budget helps you if you find yourself on the Hutchinson River Parkway in 6 feet of water, wondering how are you going to get out of this situation. It's this county budget and what we fund that does that. And as part of this process, we are implementing reform. Police reform that we know is needed. And an example of that, this budgets $6.4 million in Project Alliance. Project Alliance is the creation of mental health crisis response teams in 8 locations around the county that will be operative through 2022. And those health response teams, mental health response teams, will be there to respond with local police or with county police whenever a certain incident is reported. If an individual has a mental health episode and it threatens other people, but they have mental health professionals responding with professional police, the chances of de-escalating that incident are much greater. And the de-escalation means no tragedy, no harm to anyone. Public safety is assured, and the individual is taken so that they can get the help that they need properly and efficiently. That is what we're doing by implementing that program. That was one of the biggest recommendations that came out of our police reform task force. I want to thank Mayo Bartlett and Leroy Frazier for leading that charge. That committee continues on, and we're looking for practical implementations. That proposal also came up of some of the local police reform task force, that they wanted the county to take on this responsibility, and we look forward to working with the towns, the cities, and the villages in implementing that program. That, too, represents your safety, the safety of the people that you love when they travel about this county. How does this budget affect your health? Pretty clearly, we're still working through the COVID pandemic. We're now deep into an event, 19th, 20th month, however you want to count these things. This county government has stepped forward to provide vaccination, testing, PPE, masks, wherever was needed to help fight this disease. Now, we have it on a bit of a downswing right now. We've had various peaks and valleys over the years. We don't know. We can't foresee the future. But we do know that we have to have the resources available. Some of those resources are provided by the state and the federal government, but some of those resources are our professional resources, our professional doctors in our health department, our professional nurses within our health department who help us respond to this crisis. And we work through with school districts, with local governments, all of the different protocol and the issues that will help protect us. Because what do we want? We want no fatalities. We want no serious illnesses. That's what we want. That's why we have budgeted money in this budget to ensure that we have that in fighting COVID and all of the other communicable diseases that we face. We still face the flu every year. We still face, in childhood ages, diseases like measles and mumps, rubella, and vaccinations that deal with those things are part of what this health department does. And our clinics in White Plains and Yonkers are working overtime trying to provide a variety of vaccinations for people who want a booster shot or kids under the age of 12 who are ready to be vaccinated for COVID or any of these other diseases. That's what this budget funds in our health department. It also reaches out in initiatives that we think are very important for health. There's $4 million in this budget that is budgeted for the various qualified federal neighborhood health centers. Those neighborhood health centers, where they exist in Mount Vernon and Greenburgh and Sleepy Hollow and Ossining and other locations, provides important health services for people who have been underserved by our medical system as it exists now. People who don't have the money to interact with the medical system in a healthy way, but whose health is as important to them and to the rest of us. When we deal with a communicable disease, anybody that can get the disease can pass the disease on. So I have a vested interest in your health, and you have a vested interest in my health. And therefore, what we do with the neighborhood health centers, the $4 million we've set aside, is important money. We've put money in this budget, $1 million, for telehealth programs that target our seniors, to reach our seniors that sometimes are homebound, shut in, but still have health issues, and try to get them the health attention that they need before a situation becomes more serious. Because as we all know, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If we can catch something early, and if we can do that using technology, which provides us with that opportunity to help our seniors in health, then this budget is spending that money wisely to protect in the long run. And if you have an aged parent who might be living by themselves, this is exactly what you want your county government to do for you. You want your county government to be your partner in helping the aged people in your family find good health and be open to it. We also have money assessed in this budget for a Healthy Mom, Healthy Babies program, maternal health, and particularly where there are concerns and problems in certain communities, poverty communities, communities of color, where we have to make additional outreach. We put money behind these things, not because we want to spend money, but we want the end result. The end result are healthier babies. A healthy baby does not require advanced medical treatment, does not require additional resources that come from the society, that might come through Medicaid expenses and things of that nature. All of these programs are wise use of money to try to make sure we get the best possible health care outcomes. What does this budget do to you if you're a working couple and you need child care? This budget allocates $5.6 million to expand our child care programs around Westchester County. During COVID, it was essential. There were people that worked from the home, but there were essential workers that had to go out and work regardless of the pandemic, and they needed to be sure that their children were properly cared for. We know that we've gone through this experience of hybrid learning and remote learning, which has been very disruptive, and there's a whole catch-up that has to happen in the education of our children. The county government doesn't have direct control over education. We try to be a partner to our education system. But one of the ways we can be a partner is by providing child care in an extensive way and across-the-board way to help those people know that their children are well cared for while they are out working. And when they are working, they are productive members of the society. They are contributing tax dollars to the running of the society, and they also know that their children are being cared for, and those children can grow up. And the child care money that we have identified in this budget is important. This is not the first time we've made advance. Working together with the Board of Legislators last year, we reduced the parent share for child care from 27% down to 23% as a way to give a financial benefit to those parents that need to utilize child care. This year, the allocation of money will go, we think, for an appropriate support and expansion of this. What are we doing in terms of housing? For those of you who see the difficulty of finding a proper place to live in Westchester County because of the affordability. That could be those of you who are gainfully employed but do not work in a field of endeavor that allows you to get the kind of compensation for which you can pay market rate for a single-family house or even for an apartment. Or for those of you that have children that grow up in this county and you want them to stay in this county. You'd like your child and your grandchildren to be nearby you and not 50, 75 miles away because that's where they can afford to live. We have put into our capital project a significant amount of money now for the third straight year in being able to acquire land, help acquire land, and help infrastructure elements to help advance affordable housing. And not in one community or two communities, but in every corner of this county. Because in every corner of this county, there is a need for affordable housing. Not everybody has accepted that, but the bottom line is we have to make the resources available, and we have to press upon people the urgency to make sure that people who work for us in key jobs, nurses, teachers, firefighters, police officers, that they can afford to live here. So they're here as the emergency arises, and they're neighbors of ours, and they're around the corner and down the block, not 50 miles away, because that's where they can afford to live. And we have to be able to make that commitment. We have made that commitment in this budget. We've also made this commitment to launch a program to help landlords who own small residential situations where they rent a certain number of units, where they can help rehabilitate those units. Sometimes when you have a very small building, only a few tenants, you don't have the financial resources to do the rehabilitation. But the rehabilitation is necessary for those tenants to have a good livable environment. And we think this program is going to be helpful. This meshes into the eviction prevention efforts that the state has through the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, ERAP, there's always an acronym, that ERAP is available with state money. The county contributed its share of federal money into the state program to make sure that tenants who face eviction because they lost their economics through COVID, or landlords that lost their revenue stream because their tenants couldn't pay the rent, that is equalized over the course of this time frame. And the county complementing that by having some resources for rehabilitation of those facilities ensures that there's a better opportunity for those people to have a more livable environment. And whether it affects you directly, if it's the house across the street from you or down the block from you that's deteriorating, your property value depends on that house being upgraded. It enhances the value of your property. So a program like this is good for the landlord. It's good for the tenant. It's good for the neighbors. It's well-spent money toward a certain purpose. In the area of emergency services, we don't know when we're going to need an emergency service. I gave one example of a rainstorm that turns into standing water, and you're on one of our parkways and your vehicle is stranded and you need to be extricated from that. But there are everyday situations that we live with every day. We deal with fire. We deal with medical emergencies. No one of us knows who next will have that heart attack at a time that they didn't expect, in a place they didn't expect. And in some places where we have fully professionalized fire departments and we have EMS, robust EMS presence, we have them. In other places, we're relying on volunteer fire departments. It's different wherever you go. But we have a program that we put into this budget to try to ensure that volunteer firefighters and EMT people have training and support. $500,000 put aside in this budget that will enhance their ability to provide that service. Because if that moment happens to me, or if it happens to you, we don't want to hear a debate about services. We need the service right away if we want to survive. If it happens to your loved one, if you're there and you see your loved one in jeopardy, you want that service provided. And that's what this budget helps doing with the things that we talk about. This budget supports the recreational assets of this county. We believe in those recreational assets. These are not frivolous, nice-to-have things. These are commitments that have been made years ago by our very wise forefathers and foremothers that built a park system that provides recreation and relief. And if you remember the heart of COVID days where we couldn't go out, we couldn't engage in our professions, we still had our public golf courses. We still had our public nature reserves. We had our walking trails and our biking trails. When you couldn't go to a movie and when you couldn't go to a gymnasium, you could go to Kensico Dam Plaza. You could take a walk on the boardwalk at Playland. These are county assets, and we believe in those assets. We fund those assets, and we improvements in the capital projects that we have, and also in some of the different investments that we're making, whether it's the lighthouse at Tarrytown, Sleepy Hollow, whether it is in fact Playland, whether it is our various pathways, North County Trailway, South County Trailway, the Hilltop Hanover Farm. All of these assets are funded at some level of improvement in this budget, and that means something to you if you need those examples for recreation to breathe. This budget fundamentally takes on the responsibility to fix what's broken. Who of you that has a car that drives it and you hear a ping in the engine or you see something rattling and you don't know what it is, who decides not to address it? Let's just keep driving the car with the ping. Let's see that little brown spot in our ceiling in our house. Let's just let that brown spot go and see what happens until the roof falls in and you have mold in the area above that. We don't do that in everyday living. We show advanced thinking when we see a problem that we try to address it. This administration and this Board of Legislators has been committed to fix what's broken. We inherited a broken Spray Ridge Pool complex. 2 pools, one that had just been opened after being empty for a long period of time. The other one had a tree growing out of it. We fixed that. They're open. They've been open for the last 2 years. The Miller House, an historic homestead in North Castle, political football between different individuals, collapsing with a blue tarp over it. We fixed it. It's an historic site. Long after George Latimer is gone from the scene, that house will represent George Washington in this county of ours, where kids, scouting groups can come, local organizations can come and see a little piece of American history sitting right here in our backyard. We fixed it. It was broken. We fixed it. We fixed the need for a New Rochelle Family Court facility. The place that we had before was in deteriorating shape. We were under mandate from the court administration, and for quite a while the can was kicked back and forth. We took it seriously, this legislature and this executive branch, and we fixed it. And we did what was necessary, and it now provides the right setting in the right location in downtown New Rochelle, easily accessible from people from Mount Vernon and Pelham that have to use it. And we did that what was necessary. We did that with the North County Trailway. Now, in this budget, capital budget primarily, we fixed the South County Trailway in its final iteration. There's work underway right now, but the South County Trailway will be what it was always intended to be when Al Del Bello and Andy O'Rourke, one Republican, one Democratic county predecessor of mine, set us on the path to make that an important recreational facility. We are committed to the completion of the project at Memorial Field. I got my high school degree on that field. What happened to that field over 10, 12 years was a disgrace. But that disgrace is over. If you drive by it now, you'll see superstructure rising up above the level that you can see. It's not mounds of dirt and hopes and promises anymore. They broke ground 4 or 5 times. Well, this time we're fixing what's broken. And that field will yet be a place where I hope Section 1 will bring its high school finals to. And we'll have a chance to have the pride once again that we had before in Memorial Field. Not just for the benefit of any one community, it'll be owned and run by Mount Vernon, but for the benefit of all of us. And that commitment goes through this government in a host of ways. And there are more things we have to fix. We have to look at the county center. Once it stops its current purpose of being a vaccination center, which it will be for a while, and we have to make that discussion. So we put money in this budget to study what the possible futures are for the county center and how we have to work on that. And we have money in this budget, which we've had previously, to study the future of the county airport, to put together a full master plan. We had to put it on hold because of COVID. Let's be clear. The county airport is an important transportation facility, and it is also an obstructive neighbor to the people that live around it and under the flight path. We have to find the balance. We have to be able to think through in a master plan, everybody in Westchester County, exactly how will this airport function in the future? How will it provide the service that it needs to provide? But how can we do that without excessive disruption to the people who live near it or the people who live under the flight path? Understanding that we do not control the skies. We control the ground. We use our good offices to try to put together an intelligent master plan with great input from everybody, from the people directly affected, but the people that are still affected if that is a distance. And it goes before the Board of Legislators for their review with a secret review, and we're committed to do these things. I'd said in one of my prior State of the County messages at the end of it, and I repeat it again today as I complete the end of these 4 years, and I look forward to the next 4 years that are coming. We are not satisfied, and we are not tired. We have the same energy and the same drive that we had just about 4 years ago when we first entered into this office. And this budget that we put before the Board of Legislators today is now theirs to look at. They have the authority to amend it. They have the authority to rearrange certain priorities. And we will negotiate with the board. And we will show, I think, better than we've seen in Washington recently, that we can have that process of disagreement, debate, and negotiations, and we can bring it to closure within the space of a month and a half. It doesn't have to stretch on and on. We don't have late budgets in this county, and we're not going to have a late budget this time. But our administration, Ken Jenkins, Joan McDonald, all the people I've mentioned before, we're going to be flexible because we respect the Board of Legislators. I served on that board for 13 years. That room is a home to me. And I was the chairman of that board for 4 years. And Ken Jenkins was chairman of that board for 4 years. We have great respect for the legislative function. The legislative function, the executive function on this budget will work together. We will find the common ground that we can find. And we want to prove to you that it is possible for government in 2021 to find common ground, that results can be the standard of government, not just rhetoric, that what we're trying to accomplish here is tangible, and people will see it and they'll feel it. They'll understand what this budget means to their wallet, to their safety, to their health, to child care, to the recreation that they use, all of these different things. This is not just a static budget. This is a living, breathing document. We have our challenges ahead. The challenges now belong to Chairman of the Legislature, Ben Boykin. So we have this ceremonial handoff. I remember very well when I was the recipient of it 20 years ago, and I'd get this book in my hands thinking, oh, brother. So now I get to do the handoff, and it gets to be his headache. And we are joined today by Chairman Ben Boykin, also by the Majority Leader, Mary Jane Shimsky, and I'm sure perhaps virtually by other members of the legislature. I'm looking out there to see. We have Catherine Borgia, who is the chair of the Budget and Appropriations. The truth of the matter is she gets most of the headaches. I used to hand those off to Richard Wishney, who's now a commissioner, but he's the Budget and Appropriations Director. And do I see Legislator Vedat Gashi is with us as well. And we're very grateful to have all of the members of the board, both sides of the aisle. We are past the point of politicking. We are in the world of governing, and everybody has a seat at the table to discuss this. So, Mr. Chairman, I invite you to take this off my hands and then share with our friends here in the media your thoughts and comments, and then I'll be back to answer any questions. Okay. Chairman of the board, Ben Boykin.
Thank you, County Executive Latimer. I'm Ben Boykin, Chairman of the Westchester County Board of Legislators, and we've also been joined, we have the Budget and Appropriations Chairwoman, Catherine Borgia, with us, the Majority Leader, Mary Jane Shimsky. We have Jason Trevocas is with us, our Director of Communications, and Vedat Gashi is also with us, who heads up our Public Works and Transportation Committee. Over the last 4 years, under extremely challenging conditions, especially over the last 18 months during the COVID pandemic, we've worked diligently under your leadership and with the hard work of the Board of Legislators to right this county's fiscal ship. You and your executive team and all commissioners and us have worked in one direction: to move this county forward. I'm proud of the work that we've done. We've rebuilt the county's reserve funds, cut the county's property tax levy, and eliminated the county's reliance on one-shot revenues. One shot means you have one time, but then you gotta find some other option to make those revenues. And we've done all of this while we've invested in our roads, our bridges, our parks, our rolling stock, our environment, and to continue to provide essential services to the people of Westchester. And delivering a truly historic response to this pandemic. The last 18 months have been like none other in the past 50-plus years of this Board of Legislators and for all the years that this county has existed. Fiscal responsibility and government services are not mutually exclusive, but you must have the right values and you must have the right leadership. As the Board of Legislators digs into the proposed budgets, we will have questions. We will suggest and have changes. There are going to be ongoing dialogues and discussions with you, County Executive, the Deputy County Executive, Director of Operations, and your other teams as we move forward to come forward with a budget that does provide for the human needs and address the issues for the people of Westchester County. But as we've done in the last 4 years, we'll work together. It will be a budget that's fiscally sound and will continue to provide for the people of Westchester County. The board's budget review process, which will be led by our Budget and Appropriations Chair, Legislator Catherine Borgia, who's with us, begins this Friday, November 12th. You can go on our website, www.westchesterlegislators.com, scroll down to the budget dashboard, click on the budget dashboard, go to the right side of that page, and you can see all the budget meetings agendas. You can also then, in the next couple hours, see the operating budget. You will see the special district budgets. The capital budget is already posted. So you will be able to find all the budget information on both the county's website and also the Board of Legislators website. We will continue to go through this process starting this Friday throughout, and we hope, if everything goes right, we will have a vote on the budgets on Monday, December 13th. You can go to the WebEx and you can view these things and everything online. Our required public budget hearing will be Wednesday, December 8th. You will soon be receiving information on how to register, how to access that information. There will be e-newses that will be available, and we'll have information posted on our budget website. As county legislators, we are always available to the people. We welcome your phone calls, your emails, WebEx conversations. We want to hear from you for what you have to say about this budget. I also, again, ask that you watch the deliberations online, as I've said before. You can also make sure, if you miss a budget presentation and want to look at it later, those items are also archived, so you can go and watch a previous budget presentation and all. So anytime you want to know what's going on, you have either live access or you have access where things have been archived and all. I and the members of the Board of Legislators are excited to continue to work with you, County Executive George Latimer, your executive team, and all departments, so that we will continue to address human needs and continue to provide essential services to the people of Westchester County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Chairman Ben Boykin. We're going to go to the press. Any questions that we have with the press? And then I'll have a few closing comments. We always give priority to those reporters who've taken the time to be with us in person. Michelle Brown with News 12 is with us. Michelle, any questions you'd like to ask?
All right, thank you, County Executive. How were you able to come to such a large property tax reduction in this budget?
Well, a number of different decisions that were made that aggregate into this. I'd say probably the single largest impact comes from non-property tax revenue that we were able to achieve. The single piece of this, I think, is the increased results of sales tax revenue. The sales tax revenue has been better than we expected, I think better than anybody's expected, and you know that we share back a percentage of that to the school districts and to the towns, the villages, and to the small cities as well. So the benefit of that has also accrued to the municipal governments, and I know that some of those governments are also being able to freeze their taxes as well because of that revenue stream. We have significant savings by reducing the workforce of Westchester County. We have less people working for the county today than we did 4 years ago. You know, you're aware that we had a voluntary separation agreement that was put into effect in the summer of last year, and those individuals left voluntarily. There was no, urgency to make them decide to do that. We had 200 some odd individuals that chose to do that. In reducing the workforce, we reduced the cost of our payroll, and I think the number is about $11 million worth of savings. Dating back over the last few years, our executive team, and I want to include John Nona, the county attorney, along with Joan McDonald and others in this, negotiated contracts with many of our big vendors and created significant savings for the county. The Liberty Lines contract, which was renewed from the end of 18 until 23, represented a savings of $20 million over 5 years. That is a savings that would not have existed if we had just rolled the contract through. The same is true of the Wheelabrator contract, which represents the Charles Point plant that we take our garbage and we turn it into energy. That's a $17 million savings over 10 years. So those are significant numbers that help do this. The money that we receive from the federal government has been extremely helpful. It has not been the only element of it, but what it's really done for us, it's taken the pressure off of us for the overtime costs and some other related costs as well, buying a PPE and so forth, which we did and provided. But when you consider that during the COVID situation, if a police officer is tested positive for COVID and you do contact tracing, his or her impact may be to other members of the police department or correction officer, other members of the correction department. And those individuals then have to be quarantined for 10 to 14 days, depending on when it happened. And taking 10 or 14 of our police or correction officers out of the mix, you can't go to a temporary agency to fill those slots. So you run overtime at a very expensive level for the existing workforce that have to do double shifts. That cost has been picked up by the federal money we received both last year under the Coronavirus CARES Act money and now this year under the money that we received from the federal government. And that gives us a great breather. Had we not had that, we'd have a completely different looking budget. So yes, it's absolutely true that the federal money had helped us, but the federal money wasn't stockpiled. It was used for things as we used it last year to help support small businesses. We had a $10 million fund that did that. We had, I believe, $4 to $5 million that we used for emergency feeding last year from federal money. So the federal money helped us balance our budget and give us a platform by which the increased revenues. We've had very strong property tax, individual property tax situation right now. Residential property, we had a press conference here with members of the Realty Board, has been really tremendous. We have not seen a diminution in property tax revenue. So all of those things together. We've also had some other revenue streams I think I've mentioned in the past. Credit John Nona for coming up with a negotiated way to settle an arrangement for payment in lieu of taxes with Airbnb. That's a couple $100,000 a year. Peter McCart gets credit for identifying a company that could help us with energy demand reduction in peak periods. That generated a couple $100,000 of revenue, all non-property tax revenue. So when you reduce your costs, personnel and otherwise, you renegotiate contracts, that reduces your costs. And then at the same time, you have some additional non-property tax revenues. You're in a position to do what we're able to do this year. The greatest challenge is not knowing what's going to happen to the economy next year, meaning forward from this budget, a year from now. If we get through the COVID situation, if it lifts by any common understanding of what lifting is, and we have a boost in the economy that follows that, then the federal money isn't going to be needed because under normal circumstances, the county can function with the revenue streams that we have. We don't know. So at this point, we think the $7 million number is a legitimate number. The board is going to analyze that as part of their review, and they'll get into the details of it. And I'm sure when the commissioners come in, certainly when the budget director comes in, and they can explain the guts of it, that will give you some more of the meat beyond what I've just done in this answer.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, let's go remotely. Do we have any questions from the press remotely? Anyone who may be picking up this as a feed from the press, you're welcome to contact Catherine Chaffee, our Director of Communications, at 995-2932, and she'll be happy to answer any of those questions. Let me then close off this presentation. I want to thank all those who are present in the room, thank the Board of Legislators for the upcoming due diligence that they're going to show on the rest of the budget. They've already been digging into the capital budget. Each of us as individuals has a certain arc to our life, where we start out. We all don't know where we're going to actually end up. You get closer to the end of that arc as the years go by. I have a birthday coming up, and you're mindful about how long the arc is going to be. But during the course of that life, you do lots of different things. Your career changes, your personal realities change, where you grow up as a kid in somebody else's household to becoming a parent of children in your household. All of that puts you in different places. When we look at this budget, since I've spent almost all of my life living in Westchester County, I think about the different parts of my life where I was and what I did. And does this budget address those needs? Because there is somebody today who is 7 years old and lives on South 14th Avenue in Mount Vernon. Somebody is sleeping in the same bedroom that I slept in 1960 when I was 7 years old. Somebody is 12 years old playing baseball at Brush Park. Somebody is 31 years old waiting for the 7:40 train in Rye to go to his corporate job on West 50th Street when I was International Director of Sales for ITT Sheridan. And my life when I was 31 in that job is very different from the life that I had when I was 11 playing baseball at Brush Park. And where I was on the day that my daughter graduated from high school and the day that she was married, brought down the aisle to be married 9 years ago. Every one of those moments is different. And every one of the realities of your life is different. This government does not exist for its own purposes. It exists to provide services to people. We're not a federal government, we're not a state government, we're not a local government. There are things local governments do, things state governments do, things federal governments do. But I look at this budget in light of those experiences that I've had in my life and knowing that other people out there have the same thing. Somebody is not watching this video who's a homeowner in Ossining and is struggling to make ends meet. Somebody is a single parent living in Harrison, and they may not watch this video, but they have certain realities in their life that they're concerned about. There's a senior citizen couple somewhere in Yonkers. They may not watch this video. They may never look at this budget, but they're going to be affected by what we do. But that is our job. That is what we took on as a responsibility. And all of us, the Board of Legislators and myself, all stood for election just a week ago. And we made a commitment. As I've often said, Election Day is not a blank check from you to me or to us. It is a promissory note from me to you. And the promissory note for the first 4 years is almost completed. This is part of the first 4 years. And the promissory note is we would do everything we could to put your needs ahead of ours. And when we budget things, that we pass legislation, and we do those executive orders, that we put your interests ahead of our own. And if we do the business for you properly, then we continue to have that authority and that ability. So that is what we're talking about today. The work is not completed until the board does its work. We look forward to working together. We look forward to having adopted budget. We look forward to spending that which we need to spend in order to accomplish these missions and not a penny more. And if we can find economies during the year, that would be a positive thing. But at the end of the day, it is our responsibility. I take that responsibility seriously. I take it as a personal responsibility from me to you. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Thank you for watching. Be safe and have a good day.